Hi, it's djkanoya, DJ, business coach, and idea sharer. And in this video, we're taking a look at two road cases, both for the Denon MC4000 controller. One from Odyssey, the other from ProX. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the Odyssey case to start with. I've got some notes because there's a lot of little details and I want to get them all correct. But this is the Odyssey FRGS Denon MC4000. Now, FR stands for Flight Ready, GS of course stands for Glide Style, which both of these come with the gliding shelf. I just don't have them on right now. And of course the Denon MC4000 means that's the case or the controller that fits in this case. So one of the first things that we'll take a look at on the Odyssey case is the space behind the controller, or basically the amount of space we have from the back of the controller to the back of the case. This area is super important for us as DJs because this is where our cabling goes, the wall warts for the power supplies, potentially a small power strip is going to want to go here. So there's a lot that's got to happen here, and if there's not enough space for it, then we've got to figure out some other options. So in just taking a look at the amount of space, we've got just under 3.5 inches of space from the back of the controller to the back of the case, which really becomes a little bit problematic when you're working with your cabling. So if I just stick in an XLR right here, you can already see that the back of this cable is really right up against the back of the case. And the same thing for your mic cable, which is gonna go right there, and it's really starting to get crowded with only one cable right here. The other problem that I had with it is the wall wart, which is so gigantic on this thing. Once that gets plugged in here, just kind of put that right there. If we've got that plugged in some type of power strip with the XLR cable that's going to go right here, you're looking at a pretty crowded area, and right now we still have another XLR that needs to go in here, potentially a booth out. I always have an aux cable going in, and then of course your mic cable. So not much space for a whole lot of cabling. Now, one of the solutions, of course, is to run your cables underneath the controller. But I'd love to be able to hide this guy underneath, but it's actually, even if I'm laying it on its side, is a good, I don't know, about a 1/2 inch taller than the controller itself. Not enough padding was placed underneath it to raise it high enough to even put the wall wart, which actually comes with it. So your only option is to find some place to put it in the back, which again just was a little bit difficult for me, and just things got really crowded. So the next thing I want to talk about is the foam insert. So really the elements that hold the case in place. And this is an area that I really felt that things fell a little bit short. We have these, I guess, foam risers, and these are super solid. They're there nicely. The issue that I had were for these front pieces. You can see this one I actually attempted to re-glue. These things are just held in place with a little bit of glue, and anytime when I would pick this up and have it on its side, and I would open the case back up, I'd always find, especially these front pieces, to just be completely out of place, and then I'd have to hold them down. So what I was seeing a lot is, the controller was a little bit out of place, which made me a little bit nervous because I didn't know how much it was actually moving around or rattling around. Luckily, it still works fine, but I didn't want to just keep pushing this down or re-gluing them. There had to be a better solution for it, and so that's when I kind of started looking elsewhere. Now, lastly, on the Odyssey case, I just want to talk about the glide shelf. Nice wide shelf. Obviously, it's about the width of the case itself. So the key element here is the access holes for your cabling. This is where your USB cable is going to go, or your power cable. From the center of from each hole, the distance is 15 inches. Now, my computer is 15 inches and fits pretty well in between, not necessarily in between, but there's a little overlap. So essentially I can center one side of my laptop on the center of the hole, and it's pretty much fits perfectly on the center of that other hole. So that's an overview of the Odyssey case. Now let's take a look at the ProX case. This is the ProX case for the MC4000. One of the main things that really just drew me to this is the amount of space that we have at the rear of the case. So if you recall, on the Odyssey case, it was just under 3.5 inches, about 3.25, and on the ProX, we're looking at just under 4 inches. So that 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch is pretty crucial, especially when we're talking about the cabling. So if we're now just looking at the XLR cable, in this case, it's well cleared of the area. And of course the wall wart, which might be able to put right here. So just overall, I mean, just having that nearly 3/4 of an inch more makes a huge difference on this case. The other parts of this that I really like, the foam inserts. You got a piece at the back, one on the side, one full length one on the side, and then another corner piece on the front, and that's completely mirrored on the other side. It's definitely, you know, not a situation where these are going to move around, and the controller itself is just really in there nice and snug. Now, they still have about the same height. There's that same piece of foam, which is about the same height as on the Odyssey case, so it's still not raised up enough to put this guy underneath, which I was really hoping. I just hate I just hate the fact that this is just sitting on the back, really serving no purpose. So let's also take a look, of course, at the glide shelf. One thing that's kind of nice that the Odyssey case does not have, but the ProX case also put some foam pieces on the underside of the glide shelf. The biggest difference, however, this case, the width of it is a little bit, let's see, the case width is 24.5 and the Odyssey case was 23.5. So unfortunately though, that of course makes the glide shelf a little bit smaller as well, and the distance between these access holes is 14 inches as opposed to the 15 inches that was on the Odyssey case. So my laptop is actually pretty much covering the entire diameter of these holes. That's just something to be aware of, that these access holes are probably not going to be accessible because your computer is going to be covering them. Okay, now that we've done a quick overview on both of these cases, let's talk about their differences. The Odyssey is going to be a little bit lower profile, so it looks sleeker, but the ProX case is just much more robust, I guess we could say. There's a huge difference in the foam inserts. You know, we talked about the Odyssey case just kind of having these pieces that are just glued in, whereas the ProX case, I'm sure these are still glued in, but they're solidly in there, and there's just like, even if this were to get bumped, which it really can't because it's up against a wall, it's not going to get in place. Whereas it's just really easy for the Odyssey case to have pressure put here, even if it's pushed back. You can see how these just move around, and it's just not good. All right, so recommendations. You know, honestly, because these are priced about the same, I would really just lean toward getting the ProX case, just because it's not like you're saving money either way, just overall a better build quality, and I just know that the controller is just going to be so much more secure here. However, I mean, if you are, you know, just kind of a hobby DJ, you're not one that's taking this thing in and out of your vehicle or your house that often, I would like this Odyssey case if this was in a semi-permanent setup in my home. Again, because of how cool and how sleek it looks, you have a lot of the different sides of the controller exposed, so it just really kind of adds to an interesting coolness factor. Whereas on the ProX case, you don't really see anything. but that kind of plays into its durability. So I think for me, as a mobile DJ that DJs several events throughout the year, and I'm going to take this one out several times, this just is a no-brainer. I should definitely use this version, or use the ProX version, just because it's going to get a lot of road wear on it. But if you're someone that doesn't travel a lot, doesn't move around, won't need to move your controller, it's almost kind of a nice little, it's in some ways it's like a display case for the controller. So, why not use this one? Well, that's a look at these two cases, one from Odyssey, one from ProX, both for the Denon MC4000. Which one do you think you would prefer? Or maybe you already own one of these. Would love to hear about what your thoughts are on the cases. Thanks for joining me on this video. I am DJ Justin Kanoya, and I will see you next time online.